The special called meeting of the Danville City Commission. Evening is Monday, March the 14th. The hour is 5:30, and I will call us to order and ask that we be led in a moment of prayer by Commissioner Jenny Holland.
Okay, let us bow our heads. Lord, we humbly come before you and ask that you will guide and guard and direct our hearts and our motives and the decisions that we make today, that they will be in the best interest of every citizen in Danville. Be with our military servicemen and women as they protect our freedoms and liberties, both here and overseas. Grant them safety and strength and bring them home safely to us. We ask that you intervene in the hearts and minds of leaders, both here and abroad, to bring about peace and justice. In Christ's name I pray, amen.
Amen. If you will rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Commission, you have had the agenda since Friday. Assume it meets your approval, and so we'll move right on into the section we call Hear the Public. This is the public's opportunity to address any item that is on tonight's agenda for 3 minutes at the podium. There'll be an opportunity later on in tonight's meeting to do likewise on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. So the floor is yours if anyone wants to speak on any subject that's on tonight's agenda. Going once, going twice.
Hello, my name is Eddie Compton. I live in Colonial Heights. I know that's an agenda item tonight, and I just wanted to say, in the prayer, she talked about helping, guiding and doing what's best for all the citizens of Danville. And I hope that's what that you see, that this will affect all the citizens of Danville if we're able to change this, make this big of a change from one R1A to an R1C. That's going to be available all over the county, all over the city. So everywhere that there's an R1A property, it can be changed. It'll be able to be changed because this will set the precedent. And I know there's enough vagaries in the comprehensive plan in order to do what's right tonight. And I hope you all find a way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Compton. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Moving right along. Item 1 is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to approve or amend.
I'll approve the minutes of 2/28 and 3/9/22.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Cottle, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 2 is the proclamation for St. Patrick's Day. And I believe we have some guests to join us tonight. Hey, young man. How are you all? Let's come over here, come over here, come over here. Let's get right here. There you go. I'll get out of the way. How come it's always the old folks holding us up? What's up with that? This is a proclamation. It says, whereas as a young boy, St. Patrick was captured and sold into slavery in Ireland before ending up at a monastery in Algiers, France. And whereas in 432, Pope Celestine appointed him bishop, and he led a small band of followers back to Ireland, where he introduced Christianity to the Druids and other natives. And whereas St. Patrick now rests in Downpatrick in County Down, very close to Danville's sister city, Carrickfergus. And whereas since 2008, more than 350 Danvillians have had the pleasure of enjoying the Emerald Isle through our sister city relationship, and whereas 7 local students will initiate Danville's first high school exchange this summer, therefore be it resolved that Mayor G. Michael Paris and the Board of Commissioners of the City of Danville do hereby salute these students, and furthermore send our best wishes to Carrickfergus on March 17th, 2022, in honor of St. Patrick's Day. Give it a round of applause for these young people. Dr. Riegelman, would you like to?
No, I would like Mary Jo Bowling because her husband started Sister Cities about 25 years ago.
Mary Jo Bowling, front and center.
Well, you know when you have a politician. Can you hear me?
Take that mic, Milton. Take that mic.
Okay. When you know you have a politician in the family, you follow him around a lot. And they go various conventions. And so I would go too. So we were at this convention in Lexington. And when they were doing their conferences, I was walking the halls to see what everybody else was offering. And they had a lot of things to offer. And the offering was Sister Cities. So I went in and sat down, and that's when Kay Sargent, which is still Lexington's guru for Sister Cities. So I came home and I said, John, we got to have a sister city. Well, he didn't know what it was, you know. And so I just kept on nagging him a little more. And so he set up a committee. And we've had how many committees?
Oh, too many.
Too many. But Milton has really taken off with the college and helping us a whole lot. So I don't know what we do without him.
So you're the founding mother.
I'm the founding mother, yeah.
Take the proclamation.
No.
No,
I deserve it.
Oh, yes, you do.
Well, yes, the wife of a politician, you bet. Oh, thank you. Thank you very
Now,
much.
notice she said that she follows the politician, but she's leading him the whole time. You understand? Yeah. Okay. You young people see how that worked? Okay. Don't forget that. Don't forget that.
Nice.
So where all will they? Oh no, thank you. Where all will they be going?
They'll each have a family they'll stay with. They'll each have a family. They're going to find out tonight who they're partnered with, and they'll stay with the partner's family for 8 days, and then they'll all come back here, and all the Sister City supporters, of which there are several in the audience who've coughed up $50, we'll have the Great American Dessert, and it'll blow your socks off. That'll be in early August.
Is everyone here a senior?
No.
No?
Freshmen,
Freshmen.
juniors, and sophomores. And there are 2 that couldn't be here tonight.
Okay. So starting with you, young man, introduce yourself and maybe tell us who your parents are so we can kind of connect some dots if we can.
All right. My name is Max Gurman. My parents are Logan Gurman and Leela Gurman.
I'm Lyndon Jackson. My parents are Christy and Chris Jackson. I'm Ellen McMahon, and my parents are Valerie and Chris McMahon.
My name is Tristan Harris, and my parents are Katie Pianowski and Chris Brown.
My name is Lily Paul, and my parents are Sarah Scott and Lindsay Paul.
And the 2 who aren't here because of other stuff are Kira Pusateri and Chloe Streisig. Okay.
Okay.
Can we introduce the rest of the people that they might not know?
Oh, sure. Introduce yourself.
I'm Jane Dewey. I'm on the Sister Cities Commission, and I actually get to accompany these wonderful students over to Ireland.
I'm Liz Horndorf, and I had the privilege
exchange in Ireland, and I went on the artist exchange for a month. Great trip, you gotta go.
And I'm Mary Beth Touchstone. I'm a member of the commission, Sister City Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on a side note, Ms. Dewey, congratulations on your recent recognition.
Yes.
Well done. All right.
Mr.
Good
Mayor,
luck. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make the motion to accept the St. Patrick's Day proclamation and wish these young folks safe travels.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Each of you is to bring us back some kind of souvenir. I'm kidding, of course. Have fun. When do you leave?
July 25th.
July 21. All right. No, thank you. Tell your mom and dad hello. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Thank you. Item 3 is a appointment for the beautification committee. You see that I have asked that you appoint Nancy Kettlehan to the beautification committee. Her resume is in your packet, and I will entertain a motion to that effect.
I will move for approval of that, and just to mention that the term expires 3/31/2026.
Thank you. Commissioner Terry, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Cardle, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 4 is the reappointment of Susan Mcgilligan to the CVB, and her term would expire on March 2025. Susan is the hotel representative on the CVB board. I'd like a motion to this effect, please.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 5 is an update on Parks and Rec. Mr. Teague?
How's it going, Commission?
Good, sir.
Doing well, thank you.
Just a little update on Parks and Recreation with our programs and where we stand as of current. One thing that I want to address you all on, we have partnered with the Library United Way and Danville Boyle Early Childhood Alliances, and we're trying to bring Dolly Parton Imagination Library to Boyle County, and it's also going to combine with Mercer County as well. For those of you all that don't know about the Imagination Library, it's basically an opportunity for every child in the community. Anyone who submits the paperwork from the ages birth to 5 years old will receive a free book monthly. So it's a good opportunity for all children throughout our community, and that's something that doesn't matter how many siblings you have in your household, as long as they are birth to 5 years old, they have an opportunity to receive a book each month. So one thing about that with us, we're not fully handling that, but we are partnered with it, and we will be helping out as a hub, so we can contact kids in the community, be able to collect their information and submit that off. That way they can take advantage of that opportunity. We've also partnered with a few local churches to have a community Easter egg hunt. As of right now, we're trying to decide on the dates of the 9th or the 16th. We'll have that date posted later on this week, and try to get everyone out to Millennium Park and go hunt some Easter eggs. Some good opportunities coming up. With basketball season, we currently finished that this week. We had our playoffs and our tournament bracket that took place for our older age kids, and then we finished up some of our younger groups this weekend. The snow tried to run us off, but we were able to fight through it and get those in. For those of y'all that don't know, we had a total of 51 teams this year that rounded about 540 participants. So all in all, I would call it a successful basketball season. With our cheerleading programs that go along with basketball season, we're continuing to run that for another week. They will have a cheer expo this weekend that will consist of Danville cheerleaders and Boyle County cheerleaders. And it's an opportunity for our programs to demonstrate their dances and their cheer routines that they've learned throughout the season. We're currently taking signups for baseball, softball, and t-ball. So if any of you all have kids or grandchildren, send them out our way, and let's get those little ones signed up. And that will run through the month of March. The deadline will be March 31st for signups for baseball and softball and t-ball. Also, at the moment, we have our football field. We have it rented out to a semi-professional group. They are utilizing that field for approximately 7 home dates throughout March and April. They've had 1 game out there so far. Everything went good. It was a good experience for them and a good experience for us. That's something new that we haven't done yet. And while Center College is under the construction of all their projects taking place, we currently are housing center football as well so that they can get in their spring practice schedule. This Friday, we have soccer taking place. Games will pick up. We have Boyle Youth Soccer Association along with Central Kentucky Storm. They will be kicking off their spring seasons. We'll be utilizing Millennium Park throughout the next couple of months. And then at the end of the month, we will begin our summer baseball and softball travel team tournaments. Those will begin this month on the 26th and the 27th. That's basically all I have for a program update at the moment.
Any questions for Mr. Teague?
Evan, where do we find the schedules for upcoming baseball?
For the schedules, you will be able to get those online or at our office. Those are currently not made out yet. Since we're currently taking registration, those schedules won't be developed until we have set teams up, and then we will begin to make the schedules out.
Okay. And online is?
That would be on our Civic Rec. You can find that on DanvilleCountyParks.com.
That's what I was looking for.
Evan, I just wanted to compliment you on the Imagination Library, that you were out in front on this event, and I hope you know that last week our state legislators approved the program to go statewide. So,
Yes, I did know that. I think it's a good opportunity for us. I can't take all of the credit for that. I have a wonderful staff that helps out and cares a lot for Parks and Recreation as well. And I'll definitely send them your message.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it much. Item 6 is resolution number 2022-03-14-01. This is a contract proposal from Pepsi Cola. Continue, sir.
I think that you all have the contract available at hand. We've kind of been stuck with Coca-Cola for the past, 20 years, I would guess. And we feel that it would be time for a good change, and it's also for a beneficial change at that. In that contract, it states we would receive $5,000 up front of in-store credit, and the contract is good for up to 5 years. And the following years, we would receive an additional $2,000 of in-store credit. We think that that's a good opportunity for us to change things up, try a different product. We feel that that's a more popular product that we would be able to sell, and we would hope that you all pass that and allow us to sell Pepsi product in the park.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
Approval of resolution 2022-03-1401.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottle. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Holland, thank you. Discussion? Evan, what was the competing bid? You remember?
Dollar for dollar, it's fairly close. I mean, you're talking, you're literally pinching dollars. I think it's just an opportunity for us to bring in a new product. And then what really sold us was the in-store credit that we would be receiving back from Pepsi. But as far as a comparable bid, it's pretty much neck and neck.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 7 is the Resolution 2022-03-14-02. This is a proposal regarding our health insurance. Mr. Boyd? Just in time, sir.
What's that thing you brought with you?
Oh, it's
That's his bodyguard.
giving us trouble is what it is. I need somebody to make me look better. That's exactly what I did. See, I got a strategy. You know? We've got a great gentleman here, John Funkhauser with Johnson & Palmer, has been kind enough to come in and help us with answer some questions. I asked him to be here to kind of support our proposal. Him and his team has done a great job of putting stuff out for market for us for this year's healthcare renewal. So in front of you, you've got an executive summary. I know we get to talk about all the exciting stuff when it comes to healthcare. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this. If you have any questions, please stop and ask me as we go through each plan. And I've got a summary on the back. A couple things that we found, positive things, since we put this proposal together, and I kind of let John explain what they found in the market a little bit that's more competitive for us. So long story short is when we looked at our healthcare plan this year, our goal when we transitioned to Johnson & Palmer and Pill and Holland was to do a full analysis of the city's healthcare plan. The goal of the plan was to find the best overall value for the city and our employee plan members. And I think we feel like we have a good proposal here on the table that will accomplish that goal. Currently, with our medical plan, when we put that out for bid, we looked at everything, not only the medical plan, but our third-party administrator, our pharmacy benefit administrator, as well as our stop-loss reinsurance. And so down at the bottom on the first page is just a summary of what our current plan is at. Expected liability for our current plan is $2.6 million. That's expected. Max liability is 3.1. And you'll see as we get into some of these charts, we're probably looking at realistically about $3 million at the end of the plan year. When we put it out to market, we have a carrier here that's going to come back with an expected quote of $2.4 million, which is basically an 8% decrease in our expected liability on medical over our current plan, which is roughly about $200,000 in savings. That we're recommending to transition to a new TPA with ARC and the medical network be with Cigna. Anthem. And the reason for that, and John can allude on some of that too, is we feel like there's better opportunities for our members to have better in-network coverage through the Kentucky Anthem network. And also it allows us to potentially get into some cost savings there. And John, if you want to allude on that.
That should, with Anthem's network, I tell everybody, it works from Pikeville to Paducah and all points in between. And we should realize a 10 to 12% savings over the prior network. So that'll be beneficial for all parties concerned.
Good. Now, when looking at our dental plan, our current dental provider is Delta Dental of Kentucky. Delta has worked well for us. 2 years ago, when we looked at our cost and our utilization, our current plan was set at a $1,500 limit per member. We dropped that down to $1,000 2 years ago, and the reason for that was because our utilization was low on dental. We didn't have very many members that were hitting that allotment, so we changed that to free up funds to be able to pay towards other plans that we didn't have before, like some of our disability plans. Well, looking at dental this year, and this is a good thing for wellness programs, is our utilization has gone back up with our members. And so on the dental, we're recommending raising that member limit back to $1,500. Our current plan year cost for fiscal year 22 is $91,000. In talking with John, we've had some additional analysis done here. Originally, we were looking at that would be an increase of roughly $7,000 to $98,000 if we added but of course it's offset by the $200,000 savings we anticipate on medical. But John was able to go back and negotiate with Delta on what's called a 4-tier program, which would basically allow us to increase the dental allotment to $1,500 with only roughly a $4,000 increase over current plan. And John, do you want to speak on that real quickly?
Right, so basically what we did, your all's current rate tier is a 3-tier structure. We're taking it to a 4-tier to match what the medical and vision is, which resulted in the premium savings. And we also, through looking through the contracts, made some enhancements there. So you're getting a higher benefit for very minimal cost.
And of course, the next health plan is our vision plan. That is administered through VSP, through Delta Dental. There's no plan change on that. We want to keep that flat. That plan works well for us. Every employee gets, an annual allotment of $130 towards vision, and so we recommend just keeping that the same for the current year. Okay. Now, going into the next plan, we wanted to look at our life plans. When we talk about life, there's really 4 programs there. There's your basic life coverage, your voluntary rate coverage, and then also our disability plans. One of the things I asked John to do was to put out to market with our current carrier, as well as look at other ones to see if we can enhance some of that life, but also try to maintain the same value to the city. Essentially, our current basic life plan right now is when we hire an employee, every full-time employee gets 1 times their annual salary for basic life coverage. They have the option to buy up additional voluntary for themselves, spouse, children. One of our goals was we wanted to look at and said, okay, can we raise that basic life limit? And one of our goals was to look at a 1.5 basic life coverage. And looking at that, John and his team did a great job of putting that out to market. We have a carrier, which is the Hartford Group, and they basically came back with a program where, and we'll talk about this, where it actually stays flat is our basic life, we could add a 1.5 factor to every employee for a $3,000 increase, but that's going to be offset by savings that they're going to give us, which roughly $4,000 savings in long-term disability. If you look on that page right now, we did mention that long-term disability was staying flat at 28. That's actually incorrect. Our current plan is at 32,000. So with the quote that we're getting with Hartford on long-term, it's a $4,000 savings, which would offset the additional cost to add additional life insurance to employees. So in summary, we're basically going to be able to keep our life plans the same if we go with Hartford Group, and also the employees are going to have more basic life coverage. So it's really a win-win for everybody on that front. Anything you want to add on that, John?
And on the voluntary life, those rates are remaining the same. Currently, you'll have a $250,000 guaranteed issue amount. That's being increased to $300,000, and they're going to allow it for a true open enrollment, so that even if a person had applied previously and been declined, they're going to be able to apply for coverage and get up to $300K with the Hartford's plan.
Now, the next thing on the list here is our Pharmaceutical Assistance Program. With our prior brokerage services, we did have a pharmaceutical program that was part of their proprietary plan. John and his team has recommended a program through Sharks, which what's really nice about this is our prior program only focused on maintenance medications for employee assistance. This actually covers specialty drugs as well, which is an additional enhancement. Of course, that program would be $41,000 annually for the Sharks program, but estimated just base savings on our current enrollments would probably save us about $100,000 in prescription drugs. What's also important about that, it also provides a solid value to employees because your employees do not have to pay co-pays on those specialty drugs. And specialty drugs right now can be very, very expensive. Our current copay on those is $100 for a 30-day supply. So it is and plus it would generate those net savings I mentioned earlier to the city's health plan. Okay. All right. And then on the next page is really your summary of what your plan looks like. This is a comparison against the current plan and the recommended renewal. And really what sticks out to me when I put these numbers together is our current plan year, it's at expected cost is 2.9. 2.2. We realistically, it'd probably be closer to 3 million by the time the end of the plan year and any lag claims that are coming in. But with the renewal, our total expected cost will be roughly 2.7 million, but that's also enhancing benefits to employees on top of that, so it provides a better overall value. One of the other things that's in here that we didn't discuss is our Pill and Holland, in conjunction with Johnson Coleman, they're looking at additional stop-loss markets that could help us potentially drop another 200,000 to 300,000 off that 2.7 cost. And if you look on these charts that I have here, you can see going back to 2018, you look at our total plan costs, or total medical costs as well, you can see it has trended up. 2021, 2022, it did go up significantly. We're trending to drop that back down with this analysis, hopefully get us back to those 18, 19 plan year levels. And also that is in addition to adding more staff and also adding more benefits to the plan that we didn't have before through our life and our disability plans. And so we feel like this is going to give us a strong position making these changes this year. So be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
The voluntary life insurance I currently have with our current folks, will that transfer?
Yes, it'll transfer over. And like I say, you'll have the opportunity to do the same and/or increase that.
Okay.
For spouses as well?
Yes.
Yep. And one thing
So-
I forgot to mention on here, and I had it in the summary, is that with our plan to switch into the Anthem network, we also keep our co-insurance for employees the same, meaning your deductibles, your max out-of-pocket, all that stays flat for your network coverages.
I'm going to say I have not had a good experience with Anthem in the past. So I'm a little concerned about switching to Anthem.
Okay.
I'm just going to put it out there.
And another, sorry, Joe, go ahead. One thing that we discussed is the current TPA that we have with ARC. Another advantage is they actually have a representative that's based out of Danville too. That will help us have a lot more. So now we have a brokerage firm that's local. We'll have a TPA that's local. So the customer service should go up significantly as well.
Okay, that's what we're looking for.
Yep.
So prove me wrong.
Yeah. And again, and that was the overall goal of the plan, is trying to balance that value to the city and our employee plan members. And like I said, if you look at it holistically, we feel like we're going to have a good network. You keep your co-insurance the same. Employee basic life coverage goes up. And then also you get enhanced dental benefits as well. And local customer service, which is huge for us.
Well done. I mean, to go from 2 million in 18 to looking at 3 million and then be able to bring it back
Yeah.
down, that's good news.
Yep.
So, thank you.
We're excited about it, yep.
Well, we just want to make sure that this is the best coverage for our employees and the most
Yeah.
user-friendly for them and the best, the best bang for our buck, but it needs to be a good service for our employees.
And the employees should see a greater benefit with Anthem because the network will be larger, so there should be fewer gaps with providers.
Well, I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-03-1402.
Mr. Cardle, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Atkins, thanks. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good seeing
All
you,
right, thank
John.
you.
Item 8 is resolution number 2022-03-14-03. This is about some surplus of IT items. City Clerk Rader.
These are just some items that IT has that they're wanting to get rid of through auction, online auction through GovDeals. So we're just asking that you approve the list as presented.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2022-03-1403.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. It might be useful to the public to know, is there a date in here when this is being done?
It's as soon as they get the pictures taken and posted on the website. I'm not sure.
Okay, so to follow the website.
Yes.
Okay. Item 9 is the second reading of ordinance number 1989. This is with respect to Ridgeview and Heartland zone change.
Mayor, if I may, before I step out of the room, speak on the record on this issue momentarily, as I did at our prior meeting on February the 14th. And I do so based upon some unfounded allegations that lacked substance and truth that just need to be certified in the record. One of which is the clarity of my role here, and that goes for the benefit of the record and for those in attendance and the public at large. But I'm a local practicing attorney. I am not an employee of the city of Danville. I'm often referred to as the city attorney. However, more appropriately, my role should be characterized as counsel to the Board of Commissioners of the city of Danville. And so I am paid for services rendered. I do not receive a salary by the city of Danville, but I only work on projects for which I am asked to work, and then develop work product for those that I'm authorized to provide. So I wanted to clarify that in a town of our size, it is inevitable that conflicts arise. They do from time to time in my tenure here at the city, and the ethical thing to do that I'm bound to do, not only legal ethics, but from a personal moral standpoint, is to recuse myself, which is what I'm doing here today due to the nature of a legal conflict. I was previously retained by Jody Sharp Construction Company to represent him as a developer in front of the Planning Commission, which is a separate public agency for which I do not represent. And upon the a final vote or determination by the Planning Commission and a forwarding of that recommendation to this body, I made it clear both to the corporate client as well as the city of Danville that a conflict indeed would arise in which special counsel would need to be afforded. In that instance, I'm tapped out, so to speak. I have no role further on the issue before you. I have no role in the selection of outside counsel. I am out, O-U-T. I'm not paid for any services rendered on this issue. I have nothing to do with the council's select or the advice that's rendered. I've had no conversations with you on the matter, no conversations with staff, will not, won't. So with that being said, I will bid you adieu until this issue is resolved. So
Well
thank
said,
you.
sir. Well said.
Good evening, sir. Mr. Bowman, if you would, share with the commission and the public the protocol before us, please.
So this matter comes to you on a zone change recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. You all had previously elected to have what is called an argument-style proceeding where you heard from the applicant and members of the public, and their comments were supposed to be restricted to evidence that was already of record, so no one could introduce new evidence like a new photograph or a new study or anything like that. I think there were maybe one or two times that a presentation kind of approached that line. At one point, I spoke up, and at one point, the developer spoke up, and the mayor rightfully said, I think we're getting a little too far afield here. Let's rein our topics back in. I think you instructed the commission not to consider any of that discussion that was about ready to happen or did happen. So with that, the decision then comes to you. You have a time period in which you must act in. If you do not, then the recommendation of the Planning Commission becomes final. You're still well within your time period. So tonight, it's not like the deadline's tomorrow. You have plenty of time still to make your decision. If someone makes a motion tonight that is to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission, I've already prepared a draft ordinance before you, just like I did the second matter, which really has not been the subject of any discussion or opposition, I guess is maybe the better way to say that. So if you desire to approve this zone change based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission, you have the draft ordinance. You just need a motion to approve that ordinance with a second, which would then result in a vote. If there's a desire by a member of this body not to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission, someone needs to make that motion, and ultimately the decision by the commission must explain why you are not following the Planning Commission. Several options there. You may think the Planning Commission missed some statutory or ordinance prerequisite that's in there. No one has raised this issue. I'm unaware of it, but sometimes people don't get notice out to all the neighbors, or things like that may arise, and so that may result in a denial of the zone change, and typically those get redone at the Planning Commission level. You may find that the Planning Commission heard all the evidence and frankly just got it wrong, that your interpretation of the evidence is different than what the Planning Commission did, that you don't think it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, that it wouldn't be consistent with the future land use map and all of those requirements there. Conversely, you could find that they just reached a decision that's totally unsupported by the record, that perhaps they put something in the recommendation that there was just no proof of in the record. That can be a situation as well. Or if the Planning Commission just overlooked something in their study and the presentation that they heard. Perhaps they didn't give consideration to a certain element that was presented before them. So that's not an exclusive list of the options. Those are probably the most common ones that arise. Frequently, I shouldn't say frequently, but on occasion, there's a zone change application that just doesn't fit. And that's sometimes a much harder no that a city commission votes on. Sometimes there's one that becomes awful close, but it just isn't enough to get it across the line. And oftentimes that results in discussions, obviously in this forum, with the developer about, you sure got awful close with your application, but I think maybe you fell just this far short based on this fact that we see in the record or based on this application of our zoning ordinance or the comp plan. And the developers, on occasion, will take then the initiative to volunteer to go back and fix any of those issues that the city commission, city councils throughout the state, fiscal courts throughout the state point out. So those are typically you feel like you're on New Circle Road here, right? And you've got so many different exits, and it depends on which one you're going to take. But so there's a lot of options, and that's how you proceed.
So let me ask, one I think you may have missed at the beginning is if no one makes a motion for the second reading, then is it automatically delayed?
It wouldn't take, so if no one makes a motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance, and there is not also a motion to deny the zone change, then you all have made no decision tonight, and the clock continues to run. I don't see Mr. Hunter. Without having spoken to him exactly when the date was, I'm not sure when to tell you when the date runs out. So you have until April 23rd.
So you have that, you have the opportunity to delay, make a motion for, make a motion against, and if you make the motion against, you have to, you can state reasons, or you can state no reasons. You can say it was a bad recommendation based on the following evidence, or you can say we disagree with the concept. Have I summarized that? Have I missed the mark?
The latter two remarks you had are correct. But you're gonna, if you vote to deny the recommendation of the Planning Commission, you have to give some reason.
Okay.
You can't give no reason.
Good
Sorry for the double
clarification.
negative there.
Thank you.
Can we ask questions of the developer during this process?
Sure.
Do we have to have a motion first to do that?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Mr. Sharp, would you be willing to entertain some questions? Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Jody.
Could I clarify something with Brian?
Sure.
Our attorney. So the city commission should not add conditions. I didn't hear.
So yeah, that sometimes arises, the thought that, well, the city commission can vote to approve a zone change if the developer agrees to do X. That's pretty clearly laid out in the statute, that any so-called condition to a zone change is going to be in your zoning ordinance. Some things you're allowed to do, some things you're clearly not allowed to do, but that has to be in the ordinance. And when you think about why that makes sense, it's to ensure that we have consistent rules that an applicant knows about before they even file the application.
But is that usually done at the site plan stage?
Oftentimes,
Okay.
yes. Or when the ordinance is drafted.
Okay, thank you.
So if you all think there's something missing in your ordinance, you do a text amendment, which goes back to the planning commission and those types of things. And special rules are in place for urban county governments. They have the ability to add different things than what.
We don't need to go there.
Okay, good enough.
I'm confused enough. Commissioner Atkins, you had some questions.
Well, we've had 2 weeks that have passed since the last discussion and the last debate. You know, I was telling the folks from our community that was city government at its best. We heard from both sides of the concern. So, Mr. Sharp, my question to you is just simply that I think two things you said 2 weeks ago. Number one question is, have you met with any of the residents from these two existing neighborhoods? Then the second question is, that word compromise about give and take in this proposal. I want to know if there's been any compromise, any give and take in the last 2 weeks that have transpired.
No, I did not meet with anyone from within the community. I was not asked to meet with anyone, and I didn't volunteer. And as for compromising, the compromising occurred at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. Everyone had the opportunity to bring up an issue and discuss it at that time to determine which direction we would go. I agreed to one compromise or two compromises in terms of, I think, modular housing going in there. Outside of that, there were no other compromises. Outside of that, none were brought up. Therefore, that is not a pertinent question to be asking at this time.
Let me ask another question then. We talked about buffering from both of these neighborhoods to your new development. Has there been any new concerns or issues related to you desiring to put buffering in these locations?
I have no objection to all of the homeowners in Colonial Heights putting up buffers. Have none whatsoever. And according to the P&Z regulations, where you have identical zoning, buffers are not required, and I follow that rule. But I have no objections to anyone in Colonial Heights wanting to put up a fence or wanting to tree line it. They're more than welcome to.
And I guess the last statement is about the concerns about the roads going straight through the two locations.
I'm sorry?
The roads, any modifications to roads might be proposed at this time?
No, I'm not going to make any modification because that falls under the domain of the city engineer. All I can do is offer a suggestion as to what we want to do, and then the city engineer and I end up working some type of feasible plan.
Thank you for answering my question, sir.
And Josh, would you sign off on the stop signs or the connection?
Yes, there would be a preliminary plat stage and a construction plan phase that we would go through that I would sign off and approve all those as they came through.
Did I recall that you had talked at a previous meeting about slowing traffic and three-way stops and different options?
Yes, I've already had some discussions with their engineer, with Vantage Engineering, about some different options that we could include here.
Thank you. I had one question. I don't know if it's for Jody. I guess in the zoning ordinance, Article 3, I was looking at the development plan, and it says you have to have the number of units for residential projects. And you had spoken of 121 units, but I didn't see it in the conditions.
That was not added as a condition. That was not part of it. And if I recall correctly, not being an attorney, standing up here alone, I am not required to submit a development plan at the time I request a zone change. That occurs with preliminary plat.
Okay, so is there in writing anywhere about the 121 units?
Is there what?
In writing that you committed to 121 or less units?
I have not committed anything because we have not concluded as to what our development plan could be. It could be 115 lots. It could be 121 lots. At this given stage, it is all speculative. Until we sit down with an engineer and develop this, we're unsure what we have.
Okay.
This is not your deal, Jody, but that seems kind of backwards to me. But seems like we should have a pretty clear idea of what we're approving when the time for approval comes. But that's a shortfall in the ordinance, I suppose, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so the ordinance calls for two different types of development plans at two different stages. I think it's sometimes called a conceptual plan or conceptual drawing at this initial stage. As it gets further along, then you have what looks more like a plat or a roughed out plat. I think, do you want to speak further to that? I mean, you know your process on how you follow that.
Jody, Mr. Sharp, this is not your first rodeo. Has the process always been this way?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me back up and say, there have been times that some of this, there have been changes that have occurred over a period of time, and for the most part, this is the procedure. It's not the absolute. I can't say it's the absolute.
Okay. Well, I'll just follow up. I'm very much like Commissioner Cottle on this. It's hard for me to make a decision without understanding where that decision is going to go. So would you be willing to provide a conceptual plan so that this commission could have more insight and potential comfort?
May I respond to that? I think you are compromising the authority of planning and zoning and the rules and regulations that they have placed. You are stepping into a situation where you are attempting to micromanage development within this community. You have appointed these people to do that job for you, and you're supposed to follow their recommendations. If I had known that I needed to present a preliminary plan or come here with for a hearing for a zone change, then this would have been the venue. The venue is planning and zoning, and they have that authority, and they have exercised it, and they have made a recommendation, and they're suggesting that you follow it. Now, you do not have to follow it.
That was going to be my point, is we don't have to follow their recommendation.
No, you do not.
We are the last layer of protection for the people.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what we are doing.
Good.
It is
I
not
think that's admirable.
micromanaging. It is not micromanaging. We are the last layer of protection here for the citizens of this community. And with all due respect, I take offense to your statement.
Let me ask you a question, a little bit more general. And maybe I address this to our city manager and our special attorney here. Following up again on Commissioner Caudle's comments, aside from Mr. Sharp's situation, this seems like it's bass backwards. This seems like when you go to planning and zoning and ask for a zone change, and here's why I want a zone change, and here's what I intend to put in there, why does that process not exist? Why is it backwards? In my estimation, it's backwards.
Jody question, Joe. That's a Mr. Hunter question.
It is all about the administratively what you require with the concept plan. And I think what's being highlighted is that we don't necessarily have enough information as part of the concept plan phase, probably, and that would be my interpretation based on the comments I've gotten, but now that's.
And I can add to this, when you look at your ordinance, this is section 3.11, which talks about the development plan.
When was that ordinance written? Was there a date on that?
I'm sure there is, but I just printed out the one section, Mayor. I'm
That's
sorry. Ashley, no one's going to help me, sorry. I don't know when it was written. But it talks about the two types of plan, right? There's the general plan, which is done early. And I think everyone understands in the development world, you can't have all the site specific. And that's a big investment. And why would you make that if you know you aren't going to get the zone change? Mm-hmm. So there's the general development plan, and then there's the site development plan. So you're at this general development plan. And here's what your zoning ordinance says. That the general development plan is intended to demonstrate to the Planning Commission the character and objectives of the proposed development in adequate detail for the Planning Commission to evaluate the proposed development and to determine what shall be binding on the use and development of the property in question. And of course, the three standards right above that are the impact it's going to have on the community facility and services. You know, is this too many homes for that sewer trunk line or water line? That's one example. 2, the impact the development has on the character of the neighborhood. And 3, the impact the development will have on the neighborhood and the community. And so when someone submits a conceptual plan, or what your ordinance calls a general development plan, you then have to interpret, is that in sufficient detail for you to answer those 3 questions? And you all, among the 5 of you, may have different opinions about whether this proposed drawing, this proposed application, is sufficient enough for you all to make those decisions. Planning Commission obviously thought it was. You all may think more is needed, or you may not. You may agree with the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I just always want to know the rules. I always feel like, I was just elected to follow the rules and learn them. So I appreciate, your insight, because we want to treat everyone the same and all developers the same, so.
But if I heard you correctly, what'd you call it, a general development plan?
Your ordinance speaks of a general development plan and a sites development plan.
What page is that on, anybody?
3-18,
Thank you.
that I do know.
No,
Sorry.
that's the ordinance. What page in our packet is that on?
It's not in our packet.
No.
I didn't have it in my packet.
I've got it online.
Oh, okay.
You got what online?
I pulled up your ordinance.
We're
it's
looking,
online.
huh?
Yeah, it was online.
But I mean, Jody, did you do a general development plan?
No, not at this point.
Yeah, that
We just-
part's in the application.
Oh, okay.
We have no formal development plan at this stage.
Thank you.
Can I ask Steve a numbers question?
I just want to clarify.
Oh,
Jody,
yeah.
no offense, but you did submit a general development plan. That was the exhibit with your 5 conditions.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So just to clarify, there was an exhibit that was somewhat of a conceptual exhibit. It was hatched in your packet, and there was a box with 5 enumerated conditions that you agreed to 2 of which were modified on the Florida plan. That was the general development plan that was submitted.
Mayor, that seems to be page 8, maybe,
Of the staff report.
in your packet, 8 and 9.
So the general development plan can be graphic, it can be written, it can be a combination, and it was 5 written conditions. I believe it's 5.
Yeah, 6.
Six.
Well, there was one added about the traffic study, correct. And then there was a conceptual that showed a proposed road alignment. And then clearly there was, going to the mayor's question, defining what the use is, so you know what it is. There was a condition said it'd be single-family detached development. Not attached, not townhomes. So the use was defined in one of those conditions. Now, were the conditions detailed enough, longer, whatever, that, I guess that's what you're talking about.
Right, and I just wondered how I read the page here about you needed to have the number of units for residential projects.
And in that case,
So-
I think it was, with the developer's choice, was referencing 5 units to the acre, as opposed to, let's say, 145 or 121 or 90. His conditions, he made a commitment that there would be no more than 5 units per acre, if I'm not mistaken.
And item 6 says the applicant agrees to conduct a traffic study to be submitted prior to the construction plan phase of the project to analyze the impacts to the surrounding existing city streets. When would that get done?
That would be what Josh referred to. That would be the preliminary plat, construction plan submittal that
Okay.
comes in with the plat.
So let me ask a question to Josh or somebody. So let's say that that traffic impact study comes back and it's alarming, just saying. Then what?
Well, we work with the developer to come up to ways to remedy whatever is alarming about it. And that's the thing, that's what the traffic study will tell us, is what we need to fix. If there's something that's being broken by, however many homes, units there are brought into the development. It'll tell us which direction they're going, which entrance we need to focus on if we're gonna work on anything, if we're gonna do traffic calming, where do we need to focus those efforts?
So the page I had pointed, I'm sorry.
No, go
Just
ahead.
one thing that may help you all as you analyze this, the page I pointed to in the zoning ordinance, page 3-18, and it talks about the 2 types of plans. The next page, 3-19, gives you some idea of what elements should be in the general plan and what should be in the site development plan. If you're looking to know what should be asked, what you should be looking for, I guess is the better way to say it.
Hey, Jody, you had said a moment ago that you were not opposed at all to a buffer. That you were not opposed at all to a buffer?
I'm not providing it. I said I'm not opposed to Colonial Heights providing a buffer. They can have all the trees in the world that they want, so long as they're not ginkgo like we have downtown.
I just wanted to get clarification on what you
Sure.
meant by that.
Josh, my concern has been, if you open that street up, Colonial Heights through Candlewood, the additional pressure that's going to put on Chestnut, because people kind of use that as a bypass now, and to me, that just kind of adds to the mess a little bit, and I guess that's why, Jody, I was kind of hoping you could put a cul-de-sac or a hammerhead or something back a little bit, but
I can
that's
put,
not your-
I can put a cul-de-sac at the end of Heartland Drive so that no traffic would come out of Candlewood into Colonial Heights. That would eliminate that.
Yeah, I think anything's on the table. Once we get the traffic study, we could look and see what the impacts are. I mean, that could be, it could tell us to put a cul-de-sac in, it could tell us not to put a cul-de-sac in, because then you put too much pressure on one or the exit or the other. That's the thing. And we could, it's gonna be, there's a lot of unknowns there, and I think that's the thing why we kind of, that traffic study, and you can see in the next couple pages, there's about what's required in the site development plan, which one of the things is the traffic study that's required, if it is. So once we get to that point, we can really analyze what the impacts are and make sure that it's having the least negative impact, I guess is maybe the right way to say it, which is not a good way to say it, but.
But again, like the mayor said, that seems backwards to me. We're going to make a zone change without any known effect of the traffic. And at that point, if part of the recommendation is to connect the streets on the zone change, then we have no recourse here.
I don't think by Earl, Brian, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think anything in here is requiring us to connect the streets. I think we would address that as part of the preliminary plat construction plan phase. Now, you all could add, I mean, I don't think there's a condition in there that requires one way or the other. Am I wrong, Brian?
No, I think you're right. I don't think a zone change means that exactly what the street design is going to be.
You know,
Right, I just had seen a sort of a preliminary aerial, I guess, that had the street going through.
Right.
That's where I was taking that from.
But I think there is there's an ability for us as the city during those review phases to make changes. Like, we're not gonna go back and completely violate a condition of the zone change. We can't do that. But if there's a change that needs to be made slightly to the general development plan, which is something that's happened in the past, or history plan and zoning here, you approve a general development plan through the zone change. That's not what the neighborhood ends up looking like many times, because there's changes that happen as the actual project gets developed and designed. So I think we can adjust those as we need to once we get to the further along to the construction phase.
But that isn't going to come back to anyone, such as planning and zoning, or to us.
The plats do. The plats go to the planning and zoning.
But if they approve something, then it doesn't come back to us at all. So they could essentially approve to connect streets, and it's done.
Well, I have to have my signature on it as well. And I don't know, I mean, that's not coming to you all, but it is something the city touches, that you all are ultimately direct Earl what to do, and Earl directs me what to do. So if you all have, we can even, I don't know what the appropriate way to do that would be, but we can have discussions about how we can, we'll get that traffic study, and I don't know what the review process.
Right, you have to tie it to something.
Yeah, so we can, once we get the traffic study in, we can kind of step back and start having conversations about it.
I mean, to me, the cul-de-sac idea or whatnot, that kind of helped the part of the comp plan about the character of the neighborhood, preserving the character of one neighborhood versus another neighborhood, and that is part of the comp plan. Because you do have to preserve the character, and I guess the planning commission would look at that when site plan level.
I don't know how you can go from R1A to R1C and maintain the character of two existing neighborhoods. I'm not just referring to Colonial Heights, I'm referring to the one on the other end as well. We've got two neighborhoods that are, in my opinion, at risk about the character of the neighborhood being changed. And my big issue really is the R1A to R1C.
Well, and if you do the math on 32 acres at up to five homes per acre, that's actually 160. I know you're going to have some waste, so to speak, with streets and setbacks and easements and that type of thing. So, we could be talking about more than 120 if, depending on how the lots are platted off. So there really, like Commissioner Holland said, there's really no agreement that there won't be more than 120, right? Correct, at this point?
Mm-hmm.
It could basically be as many as they can get in there.
I didn't see anything in the record of the application that was binding on that, and I think that's part of it, is they don't have those drawings yet to do that. I think an applicant could say, I'm applying for this zone change and I commit to build no more than X number of homes, but I haven't seen or heard that yet. But maybe you all picked up on something I missed.
So Brian, if we just said our procedure's wrong, our ordinance is wrong, we need to correct that to our satisfaction, what would be our next step? And I'm not saying that's what's going to
Right.
happen.
I'd phrase it a little differently. I'd say I haven't gone through this process. We see improvements are possible
Okay.
in our ordinance.
Okay.
So that would be what's called a text amendment, which kind of follows the same process. You don't have to go through notices because there are no neighbors. But a text amendment goes to the Planning Commission for them to work on revised language. That then comes to you, and you follow the same process. And it's an ordinance, so it's 2 readings, and that would be drafted up, and you all can hash out the language you like and hear from people who've had prior experiences. I mean, maybe like Mr. Sharp, this is, look, we encounter this hurdle when we try to apply, and you all can react to that.
But that change would not be applicable at this given circumstance, given that this is already in process.
That's right. Yeah, it wouldn't take effect till sometime in the future.
Okay.
Well,
That was my
the negative side of that is that this gets voted down tonight, then it's got to come back in some other format, go back through the whole process again if it's voted down. It's a dead issue if it's voted down.
And I also don't want to, and I don't think
Stop.
anybody is, but Jody hadn't done anything wrong. The folks in Colonial Heights haven't done anything wrong. There's just to me, it's a procedural error that's kind of come to focus here. So we're going to try to do what's best for everybody. And I don't want to get the impression that we're picking on you, Jody. We're just trying to make the best decision we can for everybody. And that includes you. So we'll proceed on.
It sounds pretty.
Which that was kind of going to be my point, was we've had a few of these issues to come up in the last couple of years, and I believe that this is an indicator of the real problem, which the real problem is we need to go back to our comp plan, and update it and look at that. So I think what we're seeing here is some symptoms of a bigger issue. While that may not help us at this moment, that's the road I think we need to go down in the future. That being said, I do not believe that this is prudent planning on the Planning Commission's part. Like I said, we are the last layer of protection for our community and our citizens. And while we want and need development, we do not and we cannot do development at the expense of anyone else, or especially existing developments. So I will make a motion to deny the proposed zone change because the Planning Commission did not adequately account for how this development would affect both neighborhoods. Did I jump the gun?
We have a motion from Commissioner Terry. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second it.
Mr. Carter
Further
seconded.
discussion?
We are in discussion.
That was my next question. So when we talked about the character of both neighborhoods, what are the rules? Do you have to just follow the character of one side, or north, south, east, and west? Is there either Brian or Steve?
May I interject something here?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Colonial Heights is not the only development neighboring on this property.
Right, there's north, south, east, and west.
Very well
So that was
stated.
my question.
You have Green Acres to the east. You have Candlewood to the south.
That's right. So that's why I wondered what the rules are. That's all. I just want to know what the rules
What
are.
are the rules for single-family development?
So I was asking.
That's what I want to know. You're attempting to differentiate here, not between a two-bedroom, three-bedroom, four-bedroom home. What we differentiate is between attached housing, multifamily housing, items like that. This is single-family housing to single-family housing. That's all there is, and they are one and the same. The difference is you have those that live in 1,100 to 1,200 square foot homes, and you have those that live in 1,800 square foot homes, and all you see is the difference in the square footage. You go back to do the math, they probably have the same 13 windows, they have the same 14 doors, they have the same garage door, front and back entrance doors. All you're looking at is the addition of a bedroom that is 12 by 13 instead of one that's 12 by 11.
Yeah, so industrial would be inappropriate, obviously, but
So-
I just wanted to know the rules from one of those two
Well,
about the north,
that's
south,
all.
east, and west.
It's single-family housing, and that's all. And that's what I agreed to.
So I think, Commissioner Holland, in the comp plan objective under land use, goal 1, objective 5, speaks to respecting the character of existing neighborhoods by encouraging that new development or new development and redevelopment will conform to the existing context as determined by scale and massing of existing buildings, placement of buildings on the lot, architectural elements, types and placements of the streets, and pattern and type of open space.
Right.
And
So
I think-
this was my question.
Yeah, and I think what you're speaking of is you have two neighborhoods, both very nice neighborhoods, but those two neighborhoods don't necessarily match each other. And here you have a parcel in the middle, and there has to be some type of transition, perhaps, you're thinking, between one and the other. And the record you've seen before you presented to the Planning Commission doesn't account for how to make that transition so that both adjacent neighborhoods, the respective character is addressed.
Right, that was my question.
Okay. And that's not necessarily saying it can't be done, it hasn't been done yet.
Keep in mind, to the west, or to the south of this property, you already have existing R1C. And so this is compatible with R1C, and you can't say that it's not.
What neighborhood you talking about, Jody? What's,
Winning colors.
which one?
Winning Colors that we did a
Oh,
year
okay,
or so
okay,
ago.
I got you, I got you.
So let me ask this question. Does Commissioner Terry's motion send this back into deliberation between Mr. Sharp and Planning and Zoning?
No, the motion is to deny it. Now, if someone didn't want you all to take action and they spoke up right now and said, hey, wait, I'll ask y'all to table that, let me go revise my app. I mean, any applicant can do that, I think, at any time until there's final action.
Mike, may I add this to it? By turning this down, voting this down, this leaves me in the position where I have no restrictions whatsoever on that property, and I can have anything from a tiny home to an 1,800 square foot home. I can have a modular home if I wanted. I have no restrictions. All of those are off.
It's still zone R1A. Mr. Hunter, you want to speak to that? Can you do all those things in an
I
R1A?
think he just said it's R1A with no prior development plan. It was zoned in 1974 with no conditions, no concept plan. It was an old zone change. So in the sense it's zoning by right, he can go in there and R1A, the only thing he'd have to meet is the minimum lot size, 10,000 square foot in the setbacks. There'd be no restrictions, no conditions, no traffic studies. He can do basically just build R1A with the minimum standards. So He would have to build them to the 10,000 square foot minimum lot sizes, which is obviously bigger than what's being proposed with the R1C, but the setbacks would be 25-foot fronts, 10 on the sides, 10 on the rear.
And 70 feet width.
70-foot wide lots, 100-foot wide at the building setback line, 25% lot coverage. There are other standards, 5-foot accessory buildings, but those are just the basic standards of any R1A lot with no specific conditions on it. I do want to clarify too, I think we're mixing up some terms here real quick. Commissioner Holland referenced, and the attorney referenced, that is a land use goal and objective where it talks about the respect the character of existing neighborhoods. That general goal and objective goes back to the 17 comprehensive plan, I believe the 07 before. That's the same goal and objective that's sort of been in the comprehensive plan for almost, I don't know, however many years, back to the 07 version. But further into the document, when you get into chapter 9, future land use, that's actually defined in a little more detail about what a general development plan is, what has to accompany a zone change request, and it gets into some more detailed issues that really come in with a conceptual plan. And it also then defines what compatibility is in more defined terms in chapter 9 of the comprehensive plan. So one is your goals and objectives. They're general, like respect the character of existing neighborhoods without defining what character means with existing. You get in chapter 9, it's very specific on how a developer in a residential setting has to determine compatibility or prove compatibility or what goes with the general development plan, concept plan, conditions, or combination thereof. And that's laid out in your staff report on page.
Steve, can you talk into the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, Jody's over here next to me. I don't know if you're sniffling or crying. I don't know what you're
I want to
doing
make
over
sure
here,
we
but-
capture your recording.
Yeah, so that is spelled out. So, from, when you look at this, you got to look at all three things together. The Planning Commission gets to make a judgment call on if there's a golden objective that they think trumps, for example, the future land use map, that may be what they make their finding on. The future land use map may be the highest order of their finding, or it could be a combination. But chapter 9 of your comprehensive plan spells out, again, how we determine compatibility and what a general development plan should entail. And that's on page 6 of the staff report. And it's under the development review provisions. And then there's specific guidance for residential development, whether it be multifamily or single family. So you kind of got to look at all those things together. And all those things could be possibly in compliance or not in compliance, depending on the developer's proof at the hearing. And again, the Planning Commission has to look at the entire comprehensive plan, not just one paragraph. But likewise, you all can do the same. You guys can say it meets everything or it didn't meet a certain thing well enough. Therefore, we're going to take whatever action you're going to take.
I think that may be page 149, starts on 149 of the comp plan.
Of the comp
if I
plan, but
found
they
it.
have, in the actual staff report, it's referenced in page 6, the staff report, where it says development review provisions. It says requests for rezoning shall be reviewed for consistency with the future land use map and the development review provisions below. And then it says here, all zone change requests must be accompanied by a general development plan, and it says in parentheses, conceptual plan, including any or all of the following: location, bulk of structure. So again, it gets into density and use and screening and buffering and utilities and parking. So this is the verbiage that's been in the comprehensive plan that gives the developer, so just so we're clear, you guys have seen zone changes where the developer specifically put a cap on the units, 250, 180. Some developers have just brought in a preliminary plat early on. In fact, with the winning color zone change, the engineering was far enough along that there was a conceptual preliminary plat. Hadn't gone through P&Z, but y'all got to see an early shot of what the lots were going to look like and where the street was going to be. In this case, the conceptual plan was probably more generic, but it had more conditions than the winning colors case.
And Mr. Hunter, the other to Mike, R1A, where it's currently zoned, you said that the developer has less restrictions attached to that versus going to this R1C. Did I understand that correctly?
Because in 1974, this community did not attach concept plans or conditions with zone changes. So that property was zoned, blanket zone, Colonial Heights, big chunk of Candlewood. All that was zoned R1A at one time in 1974 with no plan, no conditions, not even a map. You go back and pull the 1974 file, it's just an application, a name, and an acreage to a zone change request. At that point, it was agriculture to R1A. Over the years, concept plans started to evolve, preliminary plats, conditions. So if you pull the zone change files, you don't start to see conditions attached to zone changes till like the late 90s.
Okay, so I'm going to develop a piece of R1 land, and wow, I can do whatever I want to do.
Well, you can't put, Commissioner High, you can't do industrial.
Well, no,
You can't do
that's not housing,
multifamily.
yeah.
You can't do, other things. You could do single family,
Anything is single family.
and it could be a stick-built home, it could be a modular home, it could be a tiny home, could be a
Wow.
vinyl-sided home, metal roof home, flat roof home. I mean, there's just we don't regulate architectural design in the zoning ordinance.
And remind me and everyone, what is the zoning of Colonial Heights?
R1A.
R1A. I'm also looking under your guidance for residential development here. Residential development should not exceed the density of immediately adjacent developments by more than 50%.
So that was a fairly highly debated issue at the Planning Commission. And in theory, to your calculation, if you had 32 acres and you did X number of units, you could argue that it maybe did exceed that for Colonial Heights, but it did not exceed that for Candlewood. There's 133 lots on, I forget, 60-some acres in Colonial Heights, 178 lots in Candlewood, I think on 62. So when we calculated the units per acre, and he committed to 5 units to acre, it probably exceeded it for Candlewood, but did not exceed it for, back in Colonial Heights, but not for Candlewood. And then clearly, if you look to the properties to the west, which are basically ag zone properties, big lot, it would exceed that. So it exceeds it on one side, doesn't exceed it on the other. So
Which
it's a
leads me
judgment
back
call.
to both neighborhoods were not adequately accounted for.
Well, the Candlewood, it does not exceed it in Candlewood. It may exceed it in Colonial Heights. So it's a judgment call.
That's two, both.
So help me understand something, going back to the development review provisions. And I quote, "Unless specifically exempted by the zoning ordinance or by the planning commission, all zone change requests must be accompanied by a general development plan, conceptual exhibit, including any or all of the following: location and bulk of buildings and other structures, intensity of use, density of development, streets, ways, parking facilities, signs, drainage of surface water, access points, a plan for screening and buffering utilities, existing and man-made and natural conditions, and all other development conditions requested by the Planning Commission and agreed to by the applicant." Has that occurred?
Some of those had. So of that list you just read, Mayor, again, it says, first off, a general development plan did come in. And it says including all or any of the following. So obviously, intensity of use was submitted by way of a condition, the 5 units to the acre. Density of the development was technically turned in. Streets, I guess there was somewhat a conceptual layout showing that street connection, but didn't show the other streets that may be in the facility. Access points, where it ties in with the other 2 subdivisions. And then I'd say that where it says in other development conditions agreed to by the applicant, those were submitted, those were those 6 items that were on that conceptual drawing in your packet. So it wasn't everything, but it was a small subset of that master list.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We're in discussion.
I don't know how to proceed. It's weird.
Well, there's nothing says you have to proceed. You can delay it.
Yeah, but
That's an option.
I don't think this fair to the developer, and I sure don't think it's fair to the residents to not have this thing decided. But, yeah. We have another one just like this too, don't we?
So you don't think we need a unit number limit?
Mr. Bowman?
Mr. Bowman?
Did you ask me if I think you need a unit?
Yeah,
number
do we
limit?
need a unit number limit? I thought we would to follow the 50% rule, but do we not?
I think, well, that's not a black and white rule that all
Oh, okay.
applications would need a unit number, because some,
Okay.
just by the conceptual drawing, you know it's not going to exceed. I mean, if somebody says, hey, I want to do 5-acre lots and I've got 20 acres, you know that's not going to come close to exceeding a density issue. I mean, in this case, it's a little different because you've got different levels of density on at least 4 sides through, and maybe even a 5th side if there's 2 on the bottom.
So by the rules, do you have to look at both? Or,
It's just a judgment call. I mean, if
Oh,
you think,
okay.
if you think you need to do that, that's a judgment call you all ultimately have to make. That's, what he's saying is that's not a hard and fast rule on whether or not you have that limit there enumerated or not. That's a judgment call you all.
Let me just clarify one issue too. We're looking at single family, so this one's a little trickier. But where that policy's really helpful is when someone's proposing multifamily next to single family. Someone's coming in with 300 apartments next to, say, a 90-lot subdivision. Then obviously, not only are we having different kind of uses adjacent to each other, but then that density is literally setting a policy directive that those apartments can't exceed 50% of the density of the surrounding area. The goal is then that we're not jumping up from 3 units to the acre to 28 units to the acre. In this case, we're going from 5 units to the acre, where I think Colonial Heights was somewhere like 2.5, and Candlewood's probably like 3.8, 3.7 when I was just calculating. So the densities, we're talking about 1 or 2 units to the acre. But in multifamily, we've used that policy. In fact, we just used it with the project over by Candlewood's.
And so, to clarify the motion that's on the floor, you know, you have 3 options, right? This isn't consistent. It's going to deny zone change. It isn't consistent with future land use map. It isn't consistent with the comp plan goals and objectives, or you can say it's not consistent with the development review provisions. You could say all 3, or you could pick 2 of those, or you could pick 1 of those, and then you give some sort of detail about why it's not. I think this record is pretty robust before the Planning Commission, before you all last time, and before you all tonight. And I think virtually everyone has spoken and asked questions. But to your point, Commissioner Terry, you know, you made the motion to deny it for that specific reason, but that is included within the goals and objectives and the development review provisions. I just wanted to clarify that. You can't, a legislative body can't just say, we deny for the reason and then repeat the statute. It takes more than that.
So is the motion adequate or no?
No, I think it is.
Okay.
And I think you did do that because
If I need to add to it or whatever,
Right.
you know.
No, I think what your motion was, it didn't adequately examine how it would affect the character of both neighborhoods.
Yes.
Is that,
Yes.
should ask the clerk?
Or I could say all surrounding neighborhoods.
I'm trying to figure out a way to make this work. And what I would like to see, and you're not required to do it, is a better concept plan with the lots and the streets and what you have in mind, and maybe where the cul-de-sac would be. I mean, that would be awesome, and I think it would help ease the mind of some of the residents of Colonial Heights. Now, again, you are not required to do that. But I think that would be a good, I would like to see it, and I'm sure they would too.
But we're looking for a compromise and a win-win, so I personally would like to see some sort of green space or designation of a park or dog park or something of that sort. I know we can't probably can't get into that detail, so that's why I made the motion. I'm making it based on it says residential development should not exceed the density of immediately adjacent developments, with an S on it, defined as those developments contiguous to the external property boundary of the subject site by more than 50%. I believe on one side, it does.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the overall weight of evidence does support the Planning Commission's conclusions, so I can understand why they did pass it. And it follows almost all the comp plan, but these little details, I definitely agree there could be a question.
And another bullet point is, I couldn't remember where I read that, but it's right underneath that. Residential neighborhoods should be protected from adverse impacts of proposed developments and land use changes.
Can the developer address any of these and resubmit if it was denied?
He absolutely can. Right.
A
You all-
specific
Yeah, you all have
reason?
adopted a prohibition for refiling the same application, but if the developer were to refile something with much more detail, I'd leave it to the planning staff, but that typically is viewed as a different application, especially if the applicant is addressing concerns that this body has articulated.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Sharp?
Well, after some consideration, I feel as though I probably ought to go back to the original zoning where I can do what I like. And that being the case, and when I say what I like, that's within the parameters established by the city engineer. And then I can go anywhere from 90 to maybe 110, 115 lots and not have any restrictions. However, I'm restricted by what you want to do or what's being proposed here. And, I'd like to do the development, but it's not something pressing on me. There are other things that I can do that are not in the city. I can go someplace else and redirect and move out approximately 70-some odd acres of development within the immediate city. And so, it's your call, and that's what you're paid to do, that's what you're elected to do, and whatever your decision is, I'll abide by it. I resolved this 2 weeks ago, and so I just want you to understand that when you do deny it, you have denied what economic development has been requesting. You have denied what Ms. Terry has publicly stated about having affordable housing. You are denying what is a need for families in this community at a given price range. Those are all of the factors that need consideration. And so I think that to reconcile yourself with 50, 75 votes, you ought to turn it down.
Well, I'm not running, so I don't have to reconcile myself. I'm asking if there's a way that we can get a win-win out of this.
We're asking you to be a good neighbor. That's what we're asking. We're asking you to be a good neighbor.
Well, my way of looking at that is,
What are you calling a good neighbor? Where I'm told to do, I am being instructed, this is what I'm going to do? Is that a singular direction, not a bad direction? No effort? You know, if you want, I'll limit the number of lots to 135 instead of the 160. However, not being familiar with the topography, I doubt seriously we'll get more than 120. And then to say that the density on the south side is not applicable to the density on the other side, that's a mistake. This property has 4 sides to it.
Was that addressed at planning and zoning? 4 sides?
So, you know, it's in your hands.
I'd like at this point to go ahead and call for the question.
Question's been called. You want to restate the motion, please?
So we're not reading it verbatim, and the record speaks for itself, but my recollection is that Commissioner Terry's motion was to reject the recommendation of the Planning Commission and find that the proposed development is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, including the development review provisions in that and with the zoning ordinance, because the application as submitted does not adequately take into effect a number of the items listed on pages 149 and 150 that affects the immediately adjacent residential developments. And there's multiple bullet points under that you all have discussed, including the density exceeding by more than 50% and protecting residential neighborhoods from adverse impacts of proposed developments and land use changes. And so at this point, the application on the record before you does not yet meet those standards.
Which is her motion.
I think I restated her motion
Yes,
through your all's
that's correct.
discussion.
So, thank you. I'm going to ask, Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask for, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
You want a roll call?
Sure.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cottle,
All right, I always get this backwards.
It's
I'm-
to deny, so.
yes. So it'd be
A yes vote rejects the zone change.
Yes.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris,
No.
Commissioner Holland,
can I ask a question still? So if I voted yes, he could resubmit and commit to a number and just say, hey, we'll look at the effects of both neighborhoods.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as the new application is not identical. I think that's for staff to determine. You want to talk about the prohibition?
If the applicant withdraw, let's say the city denies a zone change, the applicant can withdraw the zone change before you all take final action. Final action is second reading of an ordinance. If he withdraws the application, it's like it was never there. He can refile that application next week. If you all take final action and he doesn't withdraw, he cannot bring the application back for a year. Even if it's a new application. You can't refile a zone change, conditional use, variance, whatever, from 1 year after final action, which would be if you guys denied it formally.
We're in the middle of voting,
Yeah.
and discussion has stopped.
Well, she asked me a
Okay.
question, sorry, Commissioner Terry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm thinking, so you'd have to wait a year.
This is second reading, right?
That's in your all's ordinance. You can change that. Not right now.
Yeah, can't do that now.
Okay, well, I'll say no today. I'm sorry, JH. I didn't know about the 1 year.
JH says yes.
Okay.
So the motion to deny carries. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Item 9 is the second reading of ordinance number 1990. This is the zone change for Sanctuary Road. Mr. Bowman, you want to address this a minute?
I can. So this is a zone change, an ordinance changing the zone from R1A, single-family residential, to R1C, single-family residential, for approximately 6.025 acres, more or less, of real property located at 0 Sanctuary Road in the city of Danville. This comes to you from the Planning Commission on a recommendation for approval.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Same thing.
Can we discuss first?
No, ma'am.
or-
No.
Okay.
Are you
Is that
making a
your
motion?
motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve, just to get discussion rolling.
Okay, I'll second, so we can discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Cottle. Commissioner Holland, we are in discussion. You want to go first, ma'am?
Sure. Well, okay, we have a similar zone change, R1A to R1C. Does this connect to any adjoining neighborhood? I couldn't tell from the picture.
It connects to the golf course, and then there's existing,
Can you come to the microphone, please?
cut my finger on something. There's homes on Goggin Lane that are bigger agricultural lots. I'm not sure I'd call the neighborhood like a defined subdivision, but there's clearly lots cut all the way down Goggin.
Okay, so one way in and out is Sanctuary Road, or is there another connection?
Right now, it's one way in. I don't
Okay.
think there's a stub street that could get out. It could continue some other day, but
Okay, I drove out there, so that is in the city limits, obviously, since it's here. I was surprised. I did not know it was until we received it a couple weeks ago. So, was there any opposition?
no, these are identical zone changes. There's no opposition on this case.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like
I
sign?
need
What
a
you
roll
do,
call.
what you do voice vote?
Oh, yeah. Gotta-
Fine, do voice vote.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
No.
Commissioner Cottle.
Yes.
Item 11 is the city manager report. Mr. Coffey?
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. Got a couple of things to talk about as our council exits stage left. First, Mary Conley with the Heart of Danville's in the room. We asked her to be patient with us, and we're going to give quickly. She emailed out their annual report to you guys, and I want to acknowledge the Heart of Danville's effort to communicate to the city, also to participate. I know that they're working with Josh to support the streetscape planning and also parking revisions, but I think they submitted a fairly detailed report. We hesitated to make that a formal presentation tonight because the community agency presentations are coming pretty soon anyway, in the next few weeks. And so what we simply suggested, rather than reiterate that again then, we'll just make that formal presentation then. And so she was kind enough to be patient with all of us. We would acknowledge, though, and so we want to thank her for her effort, and she's obviously here. But also, they have an annual meeting coming up on the 21st from 5 to 6:30 at the Arts Center. She wants to make sure you are invited. And again, we'll anticipate just a full presentation at the community agency meeting coming up, so. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
The next thing is Commissioner Terry has sent us a request to talk about a safety protocol. That's not the subject that, the safety protocol policy is the right word. And so what staff will do is so long as the commission's inclined, we'll draft some sort of policy for the building and for the staff to adhere to and present that to you, maybe not by the 28th, but maybe by the meeting after that. considering some of the things that she suggested. I know some of the things in there we are already actively working on, some enhanced building reinforcements in places and things like that. So, but as far as a training requirement, it makes good sense to embed that in our policies so that annually we know that we're going to do certain trainings. We do a lot of personnel training anyway, but we can include some safety training in that. So we'll look at that as staff and bring that back to you either the next meeting or the following, depending on staff. In addition to that, we're talking about a joint city-county meeting. We floated the idea to the county. We were having a hard time with the dates. Just please, without trying to schedule that today, Ashley's working on that. And so we're going to have to jump around a little bit there in order to accommodate their schedule too. And so just please be patient with us as we try to go back and forth probably a couple times in trying to get that scheduled. Some of the things we want to talk about is our comprehensive plan update that's ongoing, transportation issues, and then some other things that may pop up, planning efforts, that's large, high-level view between the city and the county. So we'll think about that, and we'll try to have a fairly short agenda and try to follow up with additional meeting later in the summer with both entities. I don't really have anything else for tonight, but did want to mention those things.
I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Coffey, that some of the things that I requested were policy implementation, but some of the other things were facility upgrades, so to speak. But I just want to make sure that we focus on the policy and establish the policy.
Yes, yeah, and those are two distinct things.
Yes.
And staff, I know Josh is actively looking at some reinforcements, and we'll do that and as
Thank
we
you.
go, just naturally.
Okay, so we're not doing the 23rd?
It doesn't, hold that date right now, that 23rd is Wednesday. No, it doesn't look like that because not all of you all can attend.
Okay.
But we will, we'll try to figure it out.
If I'm the reason 23rd doesn't work.
We're not doing the 22nd either, then, right?
If you absolutely cannot do a different day than the 23rd, just let me know as soon as possible so that I can tell my other commitment. I'd rather not cancel on them because it's some young people that I am assisting. So if the 23rd is the absolute only day, I can cancel the other, I guess. I don't really want to, but.
Well, the fiscal court has a meeting on the 22nd already. And so what we may try to do is there's 3 budget meetings, the 22nd, 24th, and 30th. We may try to shuffle those around to accommodate the county, but I don't know which day. So we will work through that and might try to make a decision before, say, 10 o'clock in the morning.
That'd be great.
And see if we can't do something, let you know.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything further?
No, sir. Thank you all.
Yes, sir. We'll move right into Hear the Public. As indicated, this will be the public's opportunity.
Mayor, I messed up. Can I take a second? I
Yes, you may.
failed to recognize our new finance director, Lee Compton, has been sitting here the entire time quietly enduring her first long commission meeting. You'll have more. Welcome to the crowd. You want to introduce yourself?
Show her how to work the microphone. There you go.
Step 1.
Hi, I'm Lee Compton. I got started on Thursday. I'm very excited to be here. Do you have any questions for me?
Do you know exactly what you've gotten into? No.
Maybe. I'm
Well,
excited.
I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah.
She could have got up and left at some point.
If she shows up tomorrow, that's the sign right there.
That's a sign, yeah.
Tell us your background.
So I grew up here in town. I went to Boyle County. Me and Ashley are actually compatriots at school. I worked a bit, prior to this, I worked in an audit position for a bank in Lexington. Before that, I worked in audit positions for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and for the Kentucky Auditor's Office. So that's a bit of a very brief where I have been career-wise. Anything else you guys want to know?
No, glad to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
I'm sure I speak on behalf of the city manager and each of us. We're glad to have you, and if we can be of any assistance to you collectively or individually, we'd be glad to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question for Mr. Coffey also. Where are we on restrictions for meetings?
We talked about that today with Ashley, and I think we're going to try to bring that up at the next commission meeting.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Ashley, for doing that.
We will move into hear the public comments, opportunity to take 3 minutes to discuss any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Seeing none,
My name is Ashley. I just had surgery, and my name is Margaret Calhoun. And I'm just down the street. I need these, there's a lot of potholes. It done damaged my car. And they need to be fixed. I mean, they in bad shape everywhere.
are you speaking on what street, Ms. Calhoun?
Well, on Lexington Avenue, right by the park, the playground. There's a big hole there, and McGrath, out there by 5 Stars.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how you come down that hill from Kentucky Fried Chicken and cross over, and you feel like it's a deep hole when you cross over and hitting all up under your car if your car's sitting real
You
low.
need to slow down, Ms. Calhoun. Quit flying through there.
Well, you want to know in 3 minutes. I can name some more, but they need a ride around town and looked at these streets. They in bad shape. I ain't never seen them like this.
Josh, you wanna address any of this, please?
You know,
The streets are in bad shape. This year's been especially rough on them. This snow this last weekend, I noticed a big difference today when I was riding around. There are a lot more potholes today from last week. So we'll keep after it. We'll keep putting cold patch in. The state's actually been more responsive this year than they were last year. I think they've done a little bit better job. I've been checking on their streets as well. Earl asked me to kind of keep an eye on state roads and make sure they were doing a good job. And they've done better than last year, but it's been a tough year. So we'll keep patching. I'll check on McGrath and Denmark. I was out of Denmark yesterday and saw one. I probably know the one you're talking about.
there is something coming down that hill.
Yep.
It looks like the road needs to be leveled out.
And we can always, we can use our apps to report those, the app to report anything, but for potholes. There is one but on Lexington between 3rd and 4th. Is that still a state road?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on. No, I'm sorry. That's City Street between 3rd and 4th.
It's on the,
yeah.
that would be the west side between 3rd and 4th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone? We'll go into commissioner comments.
I would like to give a shout out to a local person, and let me look it up to make sure I get it right. Coach Cliff Berry, a Danville native and Danville High School graduate, took the Campbellsville Harrodsburg basketball team, Division II, to the NCCAA, which is the National Christian College Athletic Association, Division II national champions. He is actually a brand-new coach there, and they defeated a Division III team to win the crown 89-79 in the final game.
Anyone else?
After I announced Bluebird Market is on Church Street, they decided not to open, and because they found a lot bigger building on 4th Street. So with a open date to be determined. I'm very excited they found a larger space because they do a lot with larger donations.
Where is it? Can you say? The top secret?
You know where Salvation Army is? On the
Yes.
one-way, across the road, and it has tinted windows.
Okay.
That
Gotcha.
building, it's
I
been
know
for
exactly.
sale.
Mhm.
Yeah. I saw the address, but I couldn't place where that building
either.
was, so, okay.
Earl, let me ask you and Josh a question. With gasoline going up to the level it is, will that, because of the way the road formula is calculated, will that put more road fund to the state and the county and the city?
It does, but the way the state is talking, they may negate that increase too. So I think it's to be determined.
Because when this happened before,
Normally it would. Normally you do see an increase.
yeah, when
That is
this
correct.
happened before, because of the quirk in the computation, when the Gas Act came down, it actually reduced the funding. It was a quirk. And so it's really strapped the counties. So, I don't know,
We'll do some research
just a question,
and call around, see what we can find out.
just a question. That's all I have. Anything else? We'll move.
If you haven't taken the Danville Aquatics Facilities Feedback Survey, is it still on danvilleky.org?
Yes, yes, it is.
And
I think we're going to try to
possibly-
leave it up through the end of the month, is the
Okay.
plan at this point. And we have 760 responses as of today. That's what our consultant was
good.
telling me, so
Great.
good turnout for that.
Is it just the website? Is it social media? Where can you
We've
find
put
this?
it on our Facebook page as well,
Okay,
the city
everything.
has.
Okay.
yeah.
And I do want to add kudos to County Judge Executive Howard Hunt for getting a regional Real ID license facility here. Huh?
That's gonna be nice.
Yeah, it's out, you go to Big Lots and move all the way to the end. There's really no signage to it, except a little 8.5 by 11 piece of paper on the front door. But I'm glad that's there. So thank him for that. Anything else? We'll move right on into payment of the bills. Chair will entertain a motion for the bills as presented.
Can we have a very, very quick break?
Is break in order? Yes, ma'am.
That is fine
Break's
with
in
me.
order.
Thank you.
Is that your motion? Do we need a motion for that?
Let's take a break.
Okay.
Move back in to our session, and I believe we were at item 12, payment of the bills. Chair will accept a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented.
I'll move to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $1,210,700.64.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion?
Call for the question?
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 13 is the engineering report. Mr. Morgan?
Yes, I think that's up on the screen. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Got the wrong date on there. I was supposed to do this last meeting and didn't get the chance to. But once again, if you all want to guess the street, this is a tough one. This is a tricky one.
What?
Guess what street that is?
Well, it looks like it needs some maintenance.
Let's see.
Well, the street sign there, what does that say?
Yeah, I left the street side on this one, so it should make it easier.
Is it Jefferson?
It's Alton Drive, out in Coel Manor. So real quick, I'm pushing two buttons at the same time here. Public services update, garage renovations. I met with the architects a couple of weeks ago, and they're finalizing the plans. Projected schedule at this point is to bid the project, hopefully in April, and construction, maybe a 6-month construction timeline from June through November is the plan at this point. They've, this time of year with the crew, with Public Works, has been snow and ice removal, potholes. I mean, that's winter for us. And it was a very wet winter, so it made it a little trickier than usual. We used a little more salt than anticipated, but we're doing okay on salt supply. We were able to handle the storm last weekend. We were going to try to minimize salt last weekend, but we ended up putting salt down Saturday morning just because of the temperatures. We also did some tree planting. We did our annual tree planting in the wintertime. This is a picture of Jackson Park, the trail kind of running up the hill from the water tower to the tennis courts. And it's hard to see in this picture, but there's new trees on each side of the trail. Drainage projects. This is 3 pictures. I try to highlight some of the good work that our guys do. On the left is a drainage swell behind a house on Carolyn Drive that we worked on last fall. This is a drainage in the curb inlet on Man of War out in Bluegrass, and then there's some inlets along the side of Cowan Street by the church parking lot. We'd had water flowing over the road and flooding the houses below there. So 3 projects that our crews did themselves. Central Fire Station. So current construction budget, $5,896,000 and change. That hasn't changed much since the last time we talked. Current expenditures, $3,774,000. That is increasing quickly as they rapidly approach completion. Current substantial completion date is April 21st by contract. I'm trying to get a change order back in front of you all as soon as I can. We're looking at a date of May 26th at this point by their current schedule that they have put together. So I'm trying to get that change order in front of you all. We have that time change order, but we also have some monetary change orders as well that we need to approve. Issues coming up, we got the City Hall sewer force main that's still on there. Streetscape improvements, we did get that approved by, our encroachment permit for those improvements were approved by KYTC last week. So we'll start, that'll be towards the end of the project. So those improvements probably will not begin until in May. And like I said, we've had completion date delays due to weather and COVID. We had one subcontractor that ended up leaving the job because they couldn't finish due to COVID issues. So they had to that delayed us a couple of weeks. And then just getting delivery of certain materials has pushed dates. So downtown streetscape. I should see a final design. I already expected to have a final design submission, but I anticipated getting it this week. We had a meeting last week to discuss that. Bid process begins in April. Construction is still scheduled to begin June 6th. As we discussed at the meeting for this project, the Main Street sidewalks should be completed by the end of October. And then the 4th Street utility and sidewalks completed in the spring of 2023. I've put a rendering up there. So I had a meeting with downtown stakeholders 2 or 3 weeks ago, a virtual meeting. We invited Heart of Danville, Mary and I walked downtown and invited all the business owners, and she got in touch with property owners, and we had a virtual meeting. I think we had about 40 attendees. And it was a good, productive meeting, but there are a lot of concerns about how this project will impact parking. I think there's the immediate concern of how construction will impact parking, and then there's a long-term concern about how the bump outs we're losing 11 parking spaces downtown with this project, how that will impact parking overall. So we've taken the initiative from that. Bridget and I and Tony actually met a couple times in the past couple of weeks to start developing, what's our downtown parking reform need to look like. And I'm going to have a proposal for you all at the next meeting in 2 weeks. It's a proposal from CenterWorks to help guide us through that process. And they're going to work as our community, outreach for the city to get input on what downtown parking, how it needs to operate and how it needs to serve our community. So they're working on that, because I think hopefully that will help ease some concerns as construction begins. So that's an update on the downtown streetscape. Wayfinding signage, still just working on that, trying to get an encroachment permit approved by KYTC to start putting in large signs. I'm probably going to start ordering some smaller signs pretty soon. And I'm trying to get our consultant to put a request for bids together to get some unit prices for the signs, so we can start ordering in bulk, and it gives us a little more flexibility as we start doing different projects with it. Stormwater program, design is complete on the streamline, the phase 1 improvements. I'm working right now on the easement documents, that we can get easements from the properties that we'll be crossing to do those improvements. Stormwater ordinance and manual updates. I expect to have something for you all to look at the next meeting. Is Stephen, city attorney, and I spoke today about. That's kind of the goal that we need to meet. My annual report is due for stormwater on April 15th to the state, and I need to show some progress on these for that annual report. Trail system. We've completed the work on the mountain bike park expansion, and we've started to build a little trailhead there at Enterprise Drive. I don't know if you all have had a chance to get out there. We put a Eagle Scout built a kiosk that we've installed there on Enterprise Drive. We've tied the two trails together with a trail along the side of Enterprise across the bridge. And we're planning to have a small 2-mile fun run there on Earth Day. Rick Saris and I are trying to put that together. I don't think we're going to charge any entry for it. We're just trying to get some promotion and get people out on the trails and give them a chance to see it. And then no further update on the Stanford Road Crosswalk at this time. I think it's still kind of being processed through the grant process. Cemeteries, working on Bellevue expansion. Got the survey done. We've got the road marked. They're going to start cutting in the road soon. We couldn't pave it until the spring anyway, so they'll cut the road in. Then they'll start putting the fence in. And I'm trying to push this now. It's drug on a little longer than I'd like to. I feel like we can have that area open this summer. I feel like that's a realistic goal at this point. Committal Shelters. We've met with our consultant. I've met with the cemetery committee. We reviewed some preliminary conceptual designs. This is an example of one that they provided to us, that the consultant did. That's actually the location it would be in Hilldale. So we've gone to the cemetery committee. They've given us comments. I've gone back to the consultant, told them what their initial reactions were to their designs, and they're supposed to get us a more narrowed down list.
We have Bill
Several people
Stalker.
on there.
Too many new people.
Bill Stalker, Sarah Berry, Kathy Fuquay, Linda Warren, Valerie Crawford, and Ernest Gooch.
I believe Mayor Paris as well is on the cemetery committee. Parks update. So kind of real quick rundown of a lot of stuff going on. Jenny Rogers. So we actually had a meeting last week. I met with several folks in town associated with the early childhood group. the RFP, I was trying to get input on how we would develop the RFP to put it out, because, the RFP is where we would set the standards that whatever childcare provider that filled the building would have to meet. I was trying to meet those standards, but I think we may be moving a little bit different direction. I'm meeting with some different agencies that might assist us with filling that facility. I should have a further update on that I don't know about the next meeting, but I'd say sometime in early April, I'd have an update on that. I'm hoping to expedite that process, so, maybe quicker than actually doing an RFP process. And then we just did a surplus of all the additional items that were left over when the building was sold to us. Once those items are removed, we're gonna contract out removing the asbestos floor tile from the building. We will still have asbestos in the building because it's in the ductwork that's in, it'll always be there. We'll always be required to do indoor air quality testing on an annual basis, just like the school had to for 70 years while it was there. But that at least get the tile off of the floor that people are actually touching. I mean, that's one thing that I want to get this. And we have a real opportunity here where the building is pretty much empty to get that done without being impactful to our operations. Michael Smith Park, we'll continue the community input process. I have a survey we were going to put out. We're kind of letting the aquatic survey run a little bit, and I'm going to follow that up with the Michael Smith Park survey so we can get some more community input on it. That we can start preparing for some summer projects. Fairgrounds, I've got the next item on the agenda is a fee proposal from Mayor Becker to finalize start moving the tennis court design forward so we can get a project started this summer on it. And aquatics, we have a survey out right now. They're developing some alternatives. The survey I think hopefully will be really helpful to you all and us as well, making some decisions about the project. So far, I think it's been a good process. I've seen some preliminary results, and I think it'll help guide us. Subdivision regulations. So I worked with Steve Hunter with Planning and Zoning and Dwayne Campbell, the county engineer, pretty much all last year to revise the subdivision regulations. We even brought in local developers, we brought in local engineers, we brought in anybody that we could to help us kind of troubleshoot what we were proposing. It has been approved by Planning and Zoning. It will go into effect June 1st of this year. So if somebody puts in a construction plan now, preliminary plan, the new regulations won't apply to it. I tried to list some major changes. We really bolstered the inspection process for when developers are building city infrastructure, city and county infrastructure. So hopefully we get a better product when it's complete. One kind of tweak it's kind of a small tweak, but it's a big difference. We went to 5-foot sidewalks where right now we require 4. But a kind of a compromise to that, because we're still trying to encourage development in the city, is a shared street alternative. I did some research. We got some pushback on wider sidewalks and sidewalks in general. So I did some research that we could do a shared street concept that is no sidewalks, but it creates a street that's actually meant to be used by pedestrians. We have a list of criteria that it has to meet, but it's very low speed, it's very low volume, it has traffic calming components to it every 300 feet. There's a lot, we've tried to create an environment where you could walk in the street because it's safe to walk in the street, because vehicles just can't get the speed, and they're just aware that, hey, it's signed appropriately. So that's actually, it's something big cities have started to do. It's in more urban environments. I found some suburban examples that match what we're doing. We've used those to guide the document that we prepared. And then also I'm using a roadside swell drainage option in the city of Danville, which means they would not have curb and gutter. That is something that is actually advised by the Division of Water with our stormwater regulations to allow for infiltration and gutter in a swell. But that'll be applicable in only certain situations. It's got to be larger lot sizes. It's going to be low slope situations, so you wouldn't put it on a certain percent slope. So we've looked at some different things. That, one of the things I heard a lot when I was talking to developers and engineers is they wanted the chance to have a little more variety with what they developed. Every street seemed to look the same, so we tried to provide that with some of those changes. And then real quick, I wanted to talk about a couple of traffic changes that I'm going to try to make in the next month or so. One is the traffic signal at Second and Walnut. Everybody is familiar with where I'm talking about. They're next to, next to Constitution Square. I've got a lot of complaints about the pedestrian signals at that traffic light. They're very old and they're very hard to see. So we need to replace those. But before I spend the money to do that, I would like to try just turning that into a four-way stop. So we will put those lights on flashing red and put stop signs up and see how traffic functions in that area. It's a very similar traffic flow to Second and Martin Luther King, which is a four-way stop right now. So if it works, we will go back with stops. We will go back, we'll take down the signal. It's the only traffic signal that the city owns and operates. The state owns and operates every other traffic signal in Danville. So it would eliminate us owning any traffic signals. So if that works, we'll take it down. If it doesn't, we'll start getting pricing into upgrading those pedestrian beacons and replace those. And then Skywatch at Starbucks. When I started a year ago, Earl said, let's put a median across there. We've developed this plan. And I said, well, I don't know if I like that. So it took me a year. But I finally kind of figured out what I want to do, which is the drawing you see there, sketch that I've talked to Central Sill, the striping company, about doing this for us. What it would do, it would provide easy access going to the west. That traffic flow towards the west would be the main flow through. The other two directions, if you're coming west from Skywatch in front of Hobby Lobby or Starbucks, you would have to turn right. You would not be able to go across the intersection or turn left into the intersection. And we're gonna test this out and see how it works. I think it will help traffic flow, especially for traffic coming from the Kroger side. And one of the main reasons we want to boost that is the issues we're having at Belinda with accidents with left turns coming out of Belinda. Which is the intersection just to the west by Applebee's. If we can encourage people to come down to this signal and use it because it's easier, that may pull a little bit of that traffic off of Belinda and help out there. And we're going to work on some other things as well to help with that process.
So help me 1 minute here. If they're turning right into the parking lot,
okay,
and they want to go to Kroger to the left.
Yeah, they just stay left. They just go.
Okay.
They just follow the.
Or they can go right, and there's a little buffer there to.
And we would do this with striping at first and signage, and if it works, if it's great, we probably will come back later and put a mountable curb island in there. That would be my goal long term if this is successful. And I added a crosswalk in there too. There's actually a sidewalk that comes up the north side of Skywatch in front of Kroger and just it ends at that intersection. I'd love to put a crosswalk in, and then our staff, we may extend the sidewalk to the east in front of Starbucks just to provide pedestrian access across through there. And right now, it's not very pedestrian friendly.
It's not very car friendly either at the moment.
Well, that's the thing. You got to trade car friendly for pedestrian friendly sometimes. But that's all I had. So, any questions?
The wayfinding
Yes.
plan, are those signs, any of those going to be on Main Street? And so are you just sort of coordinating that with the streetscape and the?
Yeah, the initial plan was to start on the outside of town and work in.
Okay.
So we've got the initial encroachment permit that we were going to submit to KYTC was really your major bypass intersections. We would start at those and then work our way downtown. This was the plan. We were going to see. I think we could probably do the bypass for the $80,000 that was put in the budget this year. I think we could cover the bypass, but once we know a signage price too, we'll be able to put a really solid budget number in next year to do that next phase, which is kind of the ring around Main Street downtown. It kind of guides to specific destinations more.
It'd be nice if we could, when we put the new streetscape and sidewalks in, if there are going to be any signs in that area, it'd be nice to have those come in when the sidewalks are done.
And I think that plays into the parking discussion as well. We've talked about that a lot, that we need better signage for parking.
Before we get into the next subject too, as an update, what we'd like to do is schedule a time this week with each one of you to give you an individual tour of some of the parks facilities that we're talking about to try to help you get oriented. Commissioner Terry suggested that will aid in visualization of some of the issues that, or some of the questions have been raised and why the consultants recommended certain aspects, and just physical, for example, location of the tennis courts plays into the elevation at the property a little bit, and why those are where they're, the baseball field recommendation, why was it there? And so little things like that, and then better to communicate what was originally proposed as we get into the moving forward of parks development, right? So that you are a little bit more oriented. So we'll reach out and try to give you that opportunity to just do a truck ride individually or with two of you through the parks so that you can better understand and better get oriented as far as what we're doing. Sometimes those can be confusing.
With that said, we'll segue right over into item 14 in resolution number 2022-03-14-04, Parks Design Fee Increase. Mr. Morgan, continue.
Yes, this is a fee proposal for Bayer Becker to move to the next phase of design at Jenny Rogers and at the fairgrounds property. You have in your packet, you have a breakdown of what's included in these tasks. So again, it's the schematic design at each location, which is going to involve a lot of, at the fairgrounds, they're going to fully survey the property. We talked about narrowing that down to just where we're going to do, tennis courts, but I think that it's efficient. We're going to develop that whole property, so it's efficient for us to go ahead and survey the whole thing. And in Jenny Rogers, that means bringing in your mechanical electrical consultant to do a full assessment of the building to develop that to the next phase. So the total fee is that they're asking for is $190,040, and that will provide us with schematic designs at those two locations.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 2022-03-1404.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second? Mr. Cottle, thanks. Discussion?
Oh, I made a comment last week without knowing that this was going to be on the agenda. And my comment was that it feels like implementation is beginning when we have looked at a concept plan one time. I was not aware until very recently that there was urgency for the tennis courts. And I just want to caution staff and city manager of making sure that things are communicated to us and that it doesn't feel like staff is in front of the commission. And this kind of feels like that. I did discuss that with Earl today, and you can expand on that if you want to. But, suddenly, from our point of view and the public's, suddenly we're building tennis courts in the fairgrounds.
Yeah, and then for staff, it's been a continuous process. It's something we live with every day. And really, a lot of the information is contained in that 2018 plan, and this is a continuation of that. And certainly, we can see that's a fairly thick document, and, unless you live with it every day and then live with the process every day, it can be very confusing. So we'll make sure we recommunicate some of those details and take a minute to explain that a little bit better, so that that's understood. And procedurally, too, there's just so many steps to a project like this. And concept is one thing, and then you get into the schematic design, which is where some of your fine-tuning occurs, and we want to make sure, or your final plans occur. Because, for example, like he's saying, we don't even have contours, detailed contours of either property yet, right? So that's just part of going through the process for us is throwing a concept out there, which has been done, and then dialing that in with the schematic, which is, you know, each one of those steps along the way will be presented to the commission. And so certainly, we're not making those decisions outside of those documents. That's been reviewed at least, and we'll make sure we recommunicate that as staff to the commission.
Thank you.
Let's see, I think,
You know, to that point, I think there's one of the things that probably needs to be reiterated in that discussion as well, and it's this fact, I know there's a lot going on in the city, but you as a commission speak through your adoption of plans. That's the way you speak, and you give guidance. The law is also clear. You shall have no administrative duties, period, none. A lot of the implementation of things that staff does are by your adoption of plans. So, and it's not even appropriate at certain facets of it after the adoption of a plan, when it's put into motion, it would be highly inefficient to bring every matter back before you to say, are you sure you agree with the plan that was previously set in motion? So I think there's a constant back and forth between commission and staff, because there's an expectation that work be developed in concert with plans that you have approved. And I know those plans get big, but to the impact that we have a lot of things going on, tennis courts are something that are easy to see. However, things that go on at the water treatment plant are much less likely to gain your attention. But I think it's important to note from a staff perspective that they're the same. So some things are very visual, others are not, but staff has to have certain concrete notions to perform with expectations that you have approved in plans. Now, it's important to dust off those plans continually, but I think it's an interesting point to note, because it's a tenuous relationship for staff to act efficiently, but yet in plans that have been previously approved, but still bring them back up. I think it's worthwhile just to note.
And I understand that. I'm just giving the perspective from the five of us that we have seen a concept essentially one time. And we did not formally even accept that. So that's just where I'm struggling. And this is a huge initiative that we have got to get right. And, you know, the adage of measuring twice and cutting once, we need to measure 20 times and cut once. And my concern is that if, you know, once we start constructing something out there, no matter what it is, that's where it's going to be.
So we left the meeting we had back last month. You know, we knew there was no decision made on the aquatics facility. Like we knew that. But so that's what we talked about. Could we kind of move this tennis courts forward a little bit without impacting the aquatics discussion at all? That we decided we could. So that's why we brought it. We thought we needed to if we wanted to hit the goals of the schools. So that's why this feels a little bit rushed to the other things. And then Jenny Rogers in general with the childcare, we were trying to get it moving forward too. So that's why these two things, we tried to bring these things to you all as quick as we could.
Okay, so like the tennis courts aren't going where a possible pool could go?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Okay,
correct.
that was my question.
That's the site visit, going out there and getting on site, then you'll start to understand how it can be built literally in pieces. And that's one of the benefits of doing the plan the way it is too, is that it's not piecemealed, but you can do things in pieces. And so that will help create understanding too, also.
And I may be the only one that feels that way. I just felt the need to.
Well, we had talked about, it's totally fair, because it is not well understood probably in hindsight. But the idea of sharing resources with the tennis courts has been there since really 2017. The plan was approved in 2018. So it was a matter, and that was conceived, you know, one of the features that would have been added to the fairgrounds whenever the fairgrounds was acquired in some of the original, you know, schematics or concepts, that when we were looking at what could happen there, And so it was just a matter of where on the property those went. But if you'll go back and look at the drawings, there's a lot more opportunities that exist on the property besides than just where those are at. But to your point though, we need to communicate. You need a site visit. Can't just look at a picture. You need to go out there and put boots on the ground as individuals, and that's totally reasonable. And so staff needs to make ourselves available to do that, to support that understanding. We can do that for sure.
And, you know, like I said, maybe I'm the only one that missed it. Maybe I just did not realize the urgency of the tennis courts. I just don't know that that was necessarily communicated to us. And if it's not communicated to us, it's certainly not communicated to the public. I'm just asking
So your
for
question
that
is,
to be
what is-
considered.
One of your questions, I take it, is that what is the urgency of the tennis courts? Has that been answered?
Well,
Not here.
The tennis courts, so remember when we were talking about the fair last year, whether or not when we would break ground on the fairgrounds, one of the things we had talked about is having our first project this year, this spring, and then when the fair asked to be at the fairgrounds, what we talked about was we'll break ground right after the fair cuts loose. And the first step of that, for example, is the tennis courts. And then the schedule with that, why that's important is because the school, that was intended to be a shared resource for the school, and the school is asking if that could be available for the next tennis season. So it's certainly logical that that baseball end of that master plan where that roadway is, that's where you would put a baseball field, that's where you would put the tennis court. So that end of the property is really not in question in terms of what you would put there, based on the original 28 plan and also the questions that's been raised by Ms. Terry and Ms. Holland on aquatics, for example. So it still allows the flexibility. So we would expect a schematic design that nails down some of those details to be presented. We expect to present more additional numbers and information on aquatic center so those decisions can be made, not in a box, but as part of the normal process for a project like this. Yeah. But the whole thing now is set up to be piecemealed. And so, for example, Jenny Rogers, you may occupy, we're playing basketball in there now, there may be a t-ball field built there this summer. So you may not have the recreation side occupied for another year, so fully, right? So it's all, the benefit of having the plan laid out the way it is that we can implement it over time in small projects and we don't have to do one big major project at one time.
Right.
Right.
Just if we could get a little more detailed on what's happening first. I don't think, I don't want to speak for anyone else. I certainly did not understand that the tennis courts were actually going to be constructed, within 3 months from now. I just didn't get that, and maybe that's on me.
Well, I mean, it's fair. I mean, we did talk about breaking ground right after the fair, and we were intending and expecting to provide an update to the commission this spring as the schematic developed.
Because, as soon as ground gets broken, we get calls on what's going on out there. And I would, if that had happened, I would have not had that answer. So that's all I'm asking.
Right. Well, you would have before that broke. I mean, there's still several reviews to happen for you. Just keep that in mind too.
Our mistake there might have been putting the fairgrounds last. That slideshow that we did that day, we were 3.5 hours in, I think, at that point.
That too,
I think
yeah.
we just kind of
I would agree with
breezed
that.
through the fairgrounds pretty quick. I think that may have been our mistake.
I would agree with that. Thank you.
I think we have a
I'll make a motion.
motion and a,
No, you got to get to,
did we vote on 14? I don't think we did, did we? We have a resolution and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 15, codes.
We treat you like you work here, just leave you here all night and.
It's okay. We issued we had 114 total inspections for the month. We issued 32 business licenses. We recovered 4 liens. And we issued 71 parking citations. If you look at number 7 on the condemned properties, that'll address the question Mr. Hunn brought up last week as to why that property is still not complete. The owner is checking in with us on a regular basis, but he provided a reason for why that has not been completed. I attended the Kentucky League of Cities Board of Directors meeting last month and the Kentucky League of Cities Local Leaders Academy. And Mayor, we need one more appointment for DAHB and another appointment for the Parking Regulation Board when you get a chance.
Thank you.
And I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe it was said we have need for an executive session for personnel. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Motion to adjourn?
Do I hear a motion to the effect for personnel?
Somebody took my paper.
I suppose I will make it. I will make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 61810-1F. I think I'd have that memorized by now.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Commissioner Terry, seconded by Commissioner Holland. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. We are in executive session, but of Tom Hensley,
Very good.
a good man who left us far too soon and
Did good things for the community.
did great things for the community, and the big man left a big swath behind, and that's a good thing. So By Commissioner Cottle, move back into regular session. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like session. We are in regular session.
Staff is recommending the hiring of Abby Clark to the position of telecommunication officer.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll
So
move to.
moved. Oh, I'm
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Holland. Thank you,
Sorry.
Commissioner Cottle. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Nothing else?
Move to adjourn.
Everyone have a nice evening. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.